Hi, guys. Welcome back to our podcast. I'm George Gill. Did we introduce ourselves before?
We don't need to anymore.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
the
I
third
guess
season.
not. All right.
If they keep coming back, they know who we are.
Cool. All right. So let's see. Last episode, we recapped a little bit about what's been going on in our lives.
Yep.
Not much. So let's talk about work a little bit and see if we can touch up on some changes that may have been going on in the last year as it compares to last time we were on the podcast. So we mentioned that the last time we recorded was 2020, and I think it was maybe the end of 2020 where we had our last episode, and we were already 6 or 7 months into COVID at that time, and obviously COVID changed the dynamic of the business very much. We saw a shortage of inventory. We saw an increase in demand. Over asking offers and multiple offers became the norm.
Decreased interest rates.
Yeah, very low interest rates. So why don't we talk about where we are now? What have you seen in the market and with your work as far as that goes?
Well, on the last episode, we spoke a little bit about how we are sort of working harder now for the same production as last year. And then after we ended the recording, you told me you didn't know what I was talking about. So let's talk about that first so I can set that straight, okay? So what I mean by that is that now it feels like we're putting a lot more effort and a lot more, just a lot more effort into our deals because it takes longer to find a property. It takes more offers until you get one accepted.
So that's on the buy side.
That's on the buy side, correct. You want me to just stop right there and
no,
talk about the
I
sell
just
side?
wanted to clarify because
Correct.
I think that listing
That's
agents
true.
might disagree.
No, that's true. Okay, that's true. So it became so that's what I meant. The fact that you're working a lot more longer hours, a lot more in order to be able to get the same business that you did the year before. Now that's what I meant. Does that make sense now?
It does. Although
You have
I,
a piece of lint on your. I should have
This side
left that
or
there.
this side?
No, you got it.
although I would say that there's been an increase in production, though. I mean, as far as the office goes, I've seen an increase in production just from last year. I mean, we've only been open for a few years, but each year has been more production and more volume. So maybe comparatively speaking, there's been more effort going into each deal, but yet there is an increase in volume.
Let's just say that the average of hours worked on every deal this year, to me at least, this may not apply to everyone, seems higher than previous years. I guess we can just put it that way.
And so if we're to say that there's been an increase of volume in transactions at the same time, so have you been working longer than you were the years before?
Sort of.
I actually also think that you've been working smarter, though, because this year you actually also got an assistant.
2020, sure, yeah, we could talk about that in a second. But I guess 2020 was also, that's when we had to pivot, and that's when we had to just rethink about how we were doing things, and we learned a lot in 2020. So yes, we have been smoking. Well, we have been, obviously.
When?
I don't even know where that came from. We have been working a lot harder, but at the same time, we have been smarter about it. So maybe that's where the more production comes from. But I'm telling you, like, it seems like every client just takes up a little bit more. There's something there that just takes up a little bit more than he did before. Maybe it's not actual time. Maybe it's emotional. Like, you know what I mean? Emotional power, I guess, that is more draining now, I guess, in a sense. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it wasn't time. Maybe it was just effort.
Yeah, I think I can see that. And actually, I was going to, again, emphasize the difference between if you're a buyer's agent versus a listing agent,
Huge difference.
How much of a difference that is. And that's true. I mean, but I would also say that listing agents probably are getting to the point where they're struggling as well, because these sellers are maybe now gotten to the point where they think that they're above everything else, and
which
it's a market that
which is our fault.
Sure.
Come on,
To an extent.
For 2.5 years, we're like screaming off the top of our lungs how it's a seller's market and how, like, hey, come list your house. Hey, you'll get 16 offers. Hey, you'll get 50, 60, $70,000 over asking. It gets to a point where it does change the mindset of people, and it does become the norm in their heads. So now when you're coming in and you're giving them what the fair market value for the property is, taking into consideration the market already, they're expecting $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 over that when you're already giving them what that increased value actually is. And it's very difficult to explain that to people sometimes because of what they hear. And there's so many forms of there's so many ways that people are getting their information nowadays as well. And there's so many weird ways of explaining the same exact thing that people can actually misconstruct that into like a million different scenarios.
Yeah. One thing that I've always said about real estate, I've been very vocal about my preference for buyers over sellers, just because I feel like I relate to them more and I can connect with them a lot more easily. But I always said that buyers are usually end at the end of the transaction. They usually end up pretty happy. They usually feel as though they accomplished something, and everything is great because they're just so excited about this new chapter in their life, right? Whereas the sellers always feel as though they're leaving something on the table, or they could have gotten something
It's
more.
all about the number.
Or not only that, but I mean, sometimes it makes it difficult because sellers, in some cases, sure, they're trying to get the most for their house, but I think that what drives that is the fact that it's their home and they're giving up their home, and they feel that emotional attachment, that they feel as though you can't tell me what my house is worth. Like, this house is worth so much more because of X, Y, and Z, and a lot of times that's not really accurate in terms of what they're considering the home's value to come from. But now I think that both of those things have been augmented that much more, in that buyers, that excitement that they usually would have at the end of a transaction is now turned into a lot of times being discouraged because they can't find a house, because a lot of times they feel as though the house of their dreams has been taken and they can't compete with multiple offers. And so they feel very discouraged and beat down. And sellers now feel a little bit more, I don't know,
entitled?
Sure, for lack of a better word, but that might be appropriate. And we're generalizing a lot. I mean, I don't want to put anyone into a certain category, but whereas before sellers might feel as though sellers probably felt as though they were leaving something on the table. Imagine now when like you said, we've been screaming that it's a seller's market. We have no inventory. If you put your house on the market, you'll get multiple offers, et cetera, et cetera. Now that has augmented that mindset even more. And so it's created this tough dynamic between buyers and sellers, and the agent is in the middle of it.
To kind of build up on that, I mean, imagine being a seller, putting your house on the market, and within 24 hours getting a really strong offer, right? So now you have a seller that's getting a really strong offer within 24 hours, and he's thinking to himself, he or she is thinking to themselves, well, it's only been 24 hours. If we got this offer, that means we might get something higher than this if we keep it on the market for just a little bit longer. What they don't understand is that same buyer that's putting in that strong offer is doing so because they've already missed out on 4, 5, 6, 7 houses. So that kind of goes to your point. You have a seller that feels like they can always get more, right? And then you have a buyer that's coming in really strong, which is reassuring the seller of those feelings in a way. But that's because the seller doesn't understand where the buyer comes from. What the last 6 months has been for that buyer.
Sure. Yeah.
Has been like. So yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. I'm not saying it's easy for listing agents. I know it's really difficult right now as well, getting offers really, really, really soon, really early after listing it, and having to tell other realtors that you want to wait. It's actually, so on the listing side, it's not easy either.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've talked to a couple people that have worked on the listing side more than I have, and okay, one person. I forget what meme it was that they referenced. Oh, I don't know if there's this meme that goes around and they apply it to different jobs, and it's like, check on your so-and-so friends, check on your realtor friends, because we're not okay. It's kind of like a joke as to the struggle that we're in, even though things are well, and it's a good problem to have when you're very busy, and we're having one of the better years, but as it relates to real estate, but at the same time, like it's a struggle trying to get people to reason with a seller, or reasoning with a buyer, and then trying to bridge that gap between the buyer being on one extreme and the seller being on the other extreme. And really, it's just a matter of like you said, of their individual mindsets, and how do you balance that act between being a good agent and relaying information and acting as, or having your client's best interest in mind while trying to walk them off a ledge or whatnot.
Well, the reason why it's so difficult is because we only have, typically like 90% of the time, we only have we can only influence one side, right? We can only influence the side that we're representing. That's the problem. So we're also expecting the other agent to do the same with their seller, or whichever side the opposite side is. So I think setting expectations from the beginning for us as an industry, regardless of whether it's your buyer or your seller, is where we need to begin in order for this to get a little bit easier for everyone. And easier doesn't mean anyone's leaving it on the table. I just feel like people will be a lot more happy and a lot just less stressed out about the whole process if they understood better what was actually happening, instead of realtors just screaming off the top of the lungs how it's a seller's market or the market's crashing, or because I mean you hear it all, so I think that's where it all needs to begin, and then from there just build up on it. Mic drop.
So moral of the story.
Sorry, I don't want to drop the mic, they're expensive.
Moral of the story.
Yes.
What is it?
Set
expectations.
Set expectations. Check in on your realtor friends. They're not okay. Someone call me, please. We're not okay. And yeah, that's it. Honestly, just like it's tough, man. It's tough, but we're in a weird place. Just adapt to changes. I think they're happening quickly, and yeah, we'll just keep pushing.
Yeah, no, I just to emphasize the importance of setting expectations. I think that makes a huge difference. You set the tone, you set the expectations as with your clients, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side. I think that it makes these difficult situations, regardless of what side you're representing, a lot easier. And it eliminates that surprise. It eliminates that false expectation. So I think that maybe in the excitement of trying to get this new client, we may drop the ball when it comes to setting that expectation, that realistic expectation. But I think that in the long run, it really will help all of us out.
Absolutely.
And being able to get to the closing table much more comfortably.
And without losing our hair, for sure.
Yeah.
Look at me. Look how stressed I look. Let's end it at that.
Yes. Sounds good. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
All right. Cool. So that we'll conclude that episode, and then we'll come back again with some more information.
Perfect.
All right.
And close if you guys have questions. I know this was a lot to take in, I think, but it's really not that bad out there. if we set your expectations correctly. That's all it takes. All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.